Welcome to Life by Design, episode 309. Welcome to Life by Design. I'm your host, Dr. Jamie Richards, and I'm joined today by my colleague, Dr. Cratio Judd.
Oh yeah, Jamie, you're sounding raspy this morning.
Yeah, that's sexy, Cratio.
Oh, I like it. That's even better. You were smoking a lot of cigarettes before you came on.
Only if I want to. That's kind of it's kind of the conversation we're having today about
Absolutely.
personal responsibility. Before we do, we are creators of Life by Design, 25 plus certified locations worldwide. Each week on the show, we discuss the principles and the practice of Life by Design. Today, we are talking about self-responsibility, and we've been talking about the food guy a lot here lately over the last few episodes. And one of the things that you're seeing now with the government is wanting to add extra labeling onto some of the products, high in sugar, high in saturated fat, high in salt. And really the point is, it's probably not going to make any difference at all. And, you were talking in the pre-show about cigarettes and how, we can plaster a person's face on a pack and their face is rotting off, or their lungs. You can raise it to $30 a pack or more, and people are still going to buy them. So, again, it comes back to, the way we solve this problem, and a lot of problems, is by people taking self-responsibility. I know this is a common theme here at Life by Design and on this podcast, but really that's what it comes down to.
Are you waiting for comment? Because I was waiting for you to keep going. You're on a roll.
You want to, sure.
I mean, yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, and it's funny because I hear a lot of people talk about how good it is, that, and don't get me wrong, looking at the food label specifically, there's a lot of shady things that companies are doing. But this is 2018. Like, it's not like
19.
Sorry, I'm behind. 2019, even worse. It's not like the information is hidden at this point. And that's why when I was writing the show notes, I just thought about cigarettes. I'm like, people are excited. Oh, we're going to label, food in high in saturated fat and salt and sugar. And that way, we're going to educate people even more. I'm like, well, what about cigarettes? Like, is there a person alive in 2019 that does not understand that not just that smoking is harmful, but that it increases to morbidity and mortality in every single possible aspect possible? Yes, two possibles, but yet they still choose to buy it. It doesn't matter. And I don't think it should matter to people as long as they're not harming somebody else. So it comes down to, if your life and anyone's life is going to ever change, it has to come down to an individual decision with the idea that there has to be a backdrop of freedom. Because if you live in a dictatorship, it doesn't matter whether you take personal responsibility. You are in an environment where you are not allowed to excel as an individual.
Well, you personally would know, but your parents grew up in that type of environment, and I know you've had lots of stories about that and listened to their experiences, and obviously probably closer to home for you than most of us.
Yeah, well, it's just, that's why they escaped, right? Because no matter how hard they worked and no matter how much money they saved, it was never enough. And, the government would always come up with reasons with why they couldn't have more. And there was just massive oppression of the people. Nobody can survive under that type of environment. So they left. Now here, it's still relatively free. So you can be responsible for your choices. So the only way that it's ever going to change in your life is that if you choose, and this isn't a guarantee, like, you can choose to make things better and you still might not succeed.
Right.
That's why people who have succeeded, it's just remarkable that they do. But it all has to start with your choice. There's nobody that can save you, right? We can talk about Nathaniel Brannan's line that nobody's coming to save you. And it's true, right? It's not that people don't care about you or people don't like you.
Right.
Just, it has to be your choice at the end of the day.
Well, I think you start to think how this applies to, challenges that people face. We were just talking about, some of the challenges that people face with, say, depression or anxiety. And, we're not saying that those things aren't real experiences for people. And we're not saying that, there's lots of cases where people don't need help beyond just what they're able to do themselves. That said, there's one core component to every one of those cases, whether it's going it alone or whether it's, finding help and doing it with a counselor. At the end of the day, you still have to take responsibility and still have to take action. Nothing, regardless of the situation, nothing will happen unless you first take responsibility and start the process of taking action.
Well, this is why I think coaching and mentorship is so important, because thankfully there is nothing that anyone is going through that somebody else hasn't gone through and
Right.
succeeded. Right? Whether your parents are abusive, your parents are alcoholics, you're depressed, you have massive anxiety, you can't get up in the morning, you're addicted. People out there in the world have conquered these things. And I think it would be a massive benefit to anyone listening if they could find somebody to get to know and ask them and find out how they conquered that. That's tremendous power there, because you're right, if you don't know what to do, you don't know what to do, but if somebody else can help you, then everything starts to change.
Well, one of the definitely central mantras that plays a big role in my life, something I share with a lot of my patients and the coaching clients, is that, when you're dealing with some of the challenges that come up, and sometimes we'll look for an excuse, something that's stopping us from taking action, something that really keeps us restricted and stuck. I remind myself that no matter what your circumstance, no matter what your situation, there's somebody else who has the same circumstance or worse and has made it work for them and has made themselves successful. And that's something I remind myself is, say I'm having a bad day or I'm having a struggle, something that needs to be overcome, something that might pop up in my head and say, "Oh, you can't get up at 3:45 in the morning. That's crazy." And I think to myself, there's got to be somebody else who has multiple businesses, 2 little kids, a big vision, still wants to accomplish all these things. What do they do? What did they do to overcome that? And the flip side, maybe in more challenging situations, there's people who, have suffered with, say, depression, who have, gone through major health challenges and have a circumstance in their life that is difficult or beyond difficult. Somebody, if not lots of people, I'm not talking just probably one person, I'm saying there's probably lots of people, Cratio, who've had a very similar situation and been able to make it work. And so I look at that and I think that should bring us excitement and that should make us feel inspired, because we can look to these people for their successes, look to them for the clues, and really use them as a guideline for getting ourselves going in the positive direction.
It's definitely a great start. If people are listening and just the fact that there's a spark of desire to want to do better, and to want to take personal responsibility, right? The next thing comes, well, what do I do? Well, the first thing that you can actually do is to seek someone out. And this is why, social media and the internet is just incredible, because you can literally meet thousands of people in the matter of a second.
Right.
But find somebody who has, because I don't know the context, right? I'm not going to pretend like I have the answers for somebody who is, suffering with a really dark depression, or whose parents are abusive, or like those are really dark things. But I do know that there's people out there who have gone through it and who have won. And I think it'd be just beneficial to find those people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a great starting point. And, again, like you said, social media has a lot of positive benefits. And one of them is, just again, finding those people, watching how they solve problems, watching how they achieve or overcome challenges. And again, if you're listening to this and again, the challenge is to not get locked in this cycle of, but my situation is different, right? But it's different for me. And I think that's something that when things are tough, we often tell ourselves. And the point that we're making is that somebody else has the same situation or far worse, and they have a way to move forward. They've figured out something, and you can leverage that for your own advantage. And that's, again, the same whether you're in a really difficult place or whether you're just looking to excel beyond the place that you're at, but you're happy, but you still want to move forward. You can look for these successes and start to take those action steps for yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree. 100%.
So, again, the theme, we've repeated this theme over and over and over again, is that
It's important, like it really is the crux of everything. You just have to have that spark inside of you that wants to move you.
it is. And I think you're right. Is, if somebody said, what's the single most important, starting point for someone to make a life change from any place in their life, what they are. And it's really to recognize that they can change, that it's their responsibility, that, although you might have been dealt a really bad hand, because that does happen. I'm not saying that there's not some circumstances that are extremely unfortunate. But again, people have been in those situations and they've figured it out. They've overcome it. And so can you. So ultimately, it's your life. And it's up to you whether you decide you want to make that decision, and whether you want to find the people, whether you want to take the action steps, or go the other direction and unfortunately suffer the consequences of of inaction and always, being stuck and always wondering what could be and what you should do. And, just feeling bad, and not just bad for yourself, but just feeling bad in general. I think when you look at those two options, I like one a lot better than the other. I don't know about you, Krisha.
Well, in this case, the kind of the central theme to tie it all back together was waiting for somebody to do it for you, right? Like we're going back to, the idea that there needs to be excess knowledge and information put in front of people when, if with a little bit of work, you can find this stuff out on your own.
Right. It's not as if we need to wait for the government to label our food to tell us what's bad. It's not like we needed them to label the cigarette packages to know that smoking cigarettes was bad.
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, whether they label it or not, it's still up to us to make a decision as to whether it's something that we want to partake in, whether we want to, reap the benefit or suffer the consequence, depending on what it is.
Yeah, totally.
Beautiful.
So, I mean, and even because I know people thinking will be like, well, there's debate around certain foods. Yeah, of course there's debate around certain foods, but like, I'd be really hard pressed, to meet somebody who doesn't know that they should probably drink water, eat a bunch of vegetables and real food, and that'll be good for them long term.
Yeah, it's not rocket science, right? It's something that's, it's something that really, you would think you would know. It goes back to the cigarettes. It goes back to the sleep. It goes back to
alcohol.
Yeah, come on. It's just, it's almost, I don't want to say it's a joke in the sense that there's not a single person alive right now who couldn't find 3 things that they know that they could be doing that would make their life better.
And by the way, sorry, just to add this caveat, I'm not saying that you need to do any of those things. We're just saying if you want to be healthier, those are the things, right? Like it's not that, nobody's forcing you to do anything, and I'm not advocating that you should be doing this, but in case you want to,
it's right there.
Yeah.
What to do is not that far away from you, and whether it be through listening to the Life by Design podcast, and hope that becomes part of the blueprint that you guys use and listen to. The one thing that we really encourage you to do is to decide what you want for your life in whatever form, shape, and experience that's going to be, and then just reverse engineer it, take the action steps, find people who've done it before, and really truly enjoy what life can be, and enjoy the life that you've dreamt up in your mind as it really starts to come to fruition, because you have taken responsibility and you are taking the action steps, and then you get to feel the experience of happiness and pat yourself on the back because you did it and nobody else did it for you. So guys, go to the show notes, check it out, lifebydesign.com/podcast. You can find today's Think by Design manual of 30-day challenge. And thank you, as always, for listening to Life by Design and joining the drive to 1 million families worldwide living life by design.